Hey, welcome friends, here we are. Chat with Matt. It is the 10th of November, 10/11, or 11/10, depending on what you say, how you say it in the world, but it will be 11/11 tomorrow here in New Zealand. Anyway, it's 2021 still. We've still got 6 or 7 weeks of this year left. I know a lot of people were happy to see the end of 2020. Thinking 2021 was going to be better, but I think many of us will be thinking that perhaps there hasn't been much of a improvement, if any. Some might even think this year has got worse, although I can assure you progress is being made. Anywho, so that's the date. It is Chat with Matt. We got half an hour or so to talk about whatever might be going on for you. I have a couple of questions written in ahead of time. I thought I actually copy-pasted an email into the notifications, but obviously I didn't because I just went looking for it, so I don't know where I copy-pasted that, but it's gone somewhere. Anywho, I got an email a couple of days ago from someone, and I thought it was a worthy topic of bringing here rather than me just typing out an answer yet again to a question I've answered quite a few times over the years, because it is quite a prevalent one. So, here it goes. I'd love to get your opinion on the need for protection that is so prevalent amongst so many well-respected light workers that we hear today. It's got to the point where I'm feeling uncertain and fearful if I have performed enough protective measures each morning for myself and my family. Is it true that the higher our vibration and light becomes, the more we are likely to be subjected to psychic interference? It feels like walking through a precarious minefield sometimes. The more I learn, quote unquote, it seems there are more reasons to worry and be concerned. I just want to be like Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music and sing merrily through each day, ignoring all. I'd so appreciate your input and voice of reason here, Matt and Mantara. Thanks. Thank you so much once again. So yeah, this is really common. Hey Sister Jane, hey Sister Anne, hello, anyone else I might have missed popping on. Please feel free to write in as we go. I know there is another question here. I'll leave this open for a little while longer before I go back and look at what was written in on the notification post that I put up. But this is really quite common that, the more that I learn, the more there seems to worry about, right? This is happening over and over. Hey, Sister Susie, I got it right. You even said it. See, that's how slow I am. I can't actually read quickly. Like I can't scan read. I read things one letter at a time pretty much, or one syllable at a time. More to the point. So this idea that we need protection, otherwise we are unsafe in the world, it's not just recent, it's been going around forever. So there's quite a few misnomers here. I'll start right in the middle of that question, which is it true that the higher our vibration and light becomes, the more we are likely to be subjected to psychic interference? Absolutely not. Absolutely not, in my experience and in my opinion and in Mantara's guidance as well. This is absolutely a fallacy that the more that you vibrate or the higher or the brighter you become, the more you're going to be attacked. It's not true. It is just not true. So what is true? As you become brighter, your illumination becomes stronger. Yes, you will be noticed more. Absolutely. You will be noticed more because you will be a beacon, right? That is the truth. But just like any beacon, the brighter it shines, it doesn't require more protection from the darkness. You know this. When a light is bright, when you put a stronger light bulb in at home, you don't need to protect that light bulb more from the darkness. The darkness is actually held further at bay. More can see that light bulb. It's shining further. It can be picked up from further away. It is now actually a beacon. It is now actually a positive influence in the world. It's bringing more light to the experience. It is more visible, it is more obvious, it is more noticed, but it's not more precarious. It's in no more danger just because it's noticed by the darkness. This is a fallacy that you need to do all of this protection work. All you need to do is stay strong in your belief that you are strong as the light inherently. This is the problem. The problem why people experience needing to protect themselves more is because they're carrying these beliefs that have been around for centuries, if not millennia, that as you shine bright, you are going to attract unwanted interference. So potential psychic attack is going to come your way because you are obviously fighting against the darkness, and the darkness is going to fight back. The darkness can't really fight back in this way. The darkness does all sorts of things to inspire doubt. The darkness works in very cunning ways to limit your ability to shine bright by infiltrating you with such beliefs that you're now in danger because you're being so bright. So let go of all of that shit. And so we see how this works, right? Because, you know, it's become for this particular person, each morning I feel more uncertain and more fearful as I leave the house that I haven't done enough protection work, right? So this is inviting fear, which basically is what feeds the darkness. The darkness loves fear. They'll create fear any which way they can. And so you fearing your own light is a great one, and fearing that you haven't protected yourself because you're now shining so bright is another equally good one, right? So the point is to get over it and to just trust that you are protected. I don't do any regular protection. I don't, in my meditations in the morning, I don't protect myself. Before I go to bed, I don't do any prayers of protection. I don't do any visualization of protection. I do visualizations of my light shining out bright and radiating out into the distance. I do consciously heighten my vibration. I choose to be as high vibration as I potentially can be, as long as it's within the bounds of what is beneficial, right? I'm choosing that inherently and consistently throughout the day. And that is my greatest protection, ironically, right? I don't have to put up barriers or evoke certain things. I don't need to bring in Archangel Michael, although I use Archangel Michael, but not to protect me from the darkness, right? Because I have no belief system left that leaves me feeling that the darkness is going to attack me. Because I know the darkness can't attack me because I'm shining too bright for the darkness to get close. Can I be psychically interfered with? Kind of, but most of what I feel is arising within me because I just keep changing the narrative. So when I have dark thoughts appear, I don't think, oh, something's attacking me, something's projecting dark thoughts at me. I don't do that because that then provides an avenue for actually being attacked. Right? Instead, what I believe is when I have dark thoughts or instabilities, right, this feeling of, oh, that's not really mine, but it's in my field, is, oh, that's arising to release, right? That's coming up to release. Hey, Sister Catherine. So the point is not to start thinking that you're under attack, because as soon as you think you're under attack, you've basically assumed that you're vulnerable to being attacked. You've actually opened the door to actually believe that it's possible for you to be attacked. Right? Because if you believe it's not possible for you to be attacked, then you wouldn't be having the thoughts, oh, I think I'm being attacked. So if you don't think you're being attacked because you think you can't be attacked, then you're pretty much safe. What you believe is what you're going to create in the world. A lot of people might think, oh, that's naive and it's this and it's that, but it works. It works for me, and I'm not about to change. And I'm not here to tell you what the truth is or what the truth isn't. I'm here to inspire you to try things that might work for you. And for me, basically just maintaining almost an arrogant disrespect for the darkness works. It just works, right? If you don't give the darkness enough credence that it is capable of attacking you personally as a being of light, then you're probably unlikely to experience attack. Will you experience some discomfort as various vibrations arise as the process of transformation unfolds? Yes. Could you, in a different mindset, believe that felt like attack? Yes, of course. It could feel like attack, or it could feel like an internal purification. What one is it? What one benefits you to believe? What does it benefit you to believe? Because I can assure you, believing that you're under attack and then trying to fight the darkness to prevent this feeling from happening isn't nearly as beneficial as believing this is stuff arising from within you, and that due to you feeling this, you are actually releasing something and becoming more free. You're actually, the same sensation that could feel like an attack on you actually feels like the process of becoming free and more empowered. Which one do you think benefits you more? Right? It's a no-brainer. Just get out of this idea that the darkness is trying to attack you and get into the idea that you are basically purifying yourself of darkness that's been left in your field from the past, and you are going to move ahead on this planet as a positive influence and as a much more expansive expression of your divine self. So hopefully that answered that, and I am happy to keep bouncing with that question or that idea. So please feel free to write in if you have any argument or doubts or want verification or my opinion on anything, right? There's no rights and wrongs here. This is not Matt laying down the law as it is for us, and any challenge to that will be unwelcome. All challenge is welcome. All conversation is welcome here, because it's going to help us all to grow, including and most importantly myself. Because, as I've shared many times, I do this not because I'm here to serve you guys, but because I'm here to serve myself. This is my self-therapy. This is me stepping up and giving myself an opportunity to feel serviceful in myself, which is very, very beneficial, right? Everything I do is completely selfish, and I'm not ashamed of that. The more that I can recognize that, the actual more service I am to more people. That's the irony of it in some ways. Anyway, Sister Joe wrote in, "Hi, Matt. Thank you. Hope you are having a good week." Yeah, I've had a great week. I've been out on Kapiti Island for the last 2 days. You can see I got a little bit sunburnt yesterday. Kapiti Island, if you don't know, is one of the world's premier bird sanctuaries, one of the oldest ones too. So it's just off the coast where I live, like literally. I live on the Kapiti coast because we've got Kapiti Island there, and we spent the night there, which is quite a rare thing to do. It only holds about 10, 15, 20 people, I think, maximum accommodation over there. And went out the night before, and actually saw kiwi bird in the wild, which again here in New Zealand is not very common, unfortunately, even though it's our national symbol and all of the rest of it. They're not roaming around because they're very, very fragile and very easily predated upon by a host of different mammalian predators. Dogs, cats, stoats, weasels, ferrets, rats, etc., have pretty much wiped them out of most places on the mainland, other than places that are fenced in, places that are reasonably remote and have a huge effort of trapping, or offshore islands like Kapiti. So anyway, apart from a lot of other birds out there, the kaka, you might have seen a photo of me with a kaka on my shoulder, which just, walking through the bush, and it came down. You should have seen how quick it was to get into the backpack as well. It can open a zip pretty quick and get its head in there, and was going for the lunch. It was pretty funny, but very, very, it's a nurturing experience to have. So it was, a high vibration experience. The vibration out there is beautiful. Anyway, so I am having a good week. One of the topics in the spiritual community recently has been about the divine masculine and the divine feminine meeting with each one of us individually, meeting within each one of us individually, so that there can be a marriage, quote unquote. Maybe I should see more. What does all this mean? Thank you, Matt. Yeah, interesting that we're back on the topic of, or both questions sort of asking about what the spiritual community is going on about, this need for protection, and now this idea of the divine masculine and divine feminine coming. Thank you, Anne. I do come live when I'm talking about nature. It is my nature to be in nature. It's all of our natures, really. Just most people don't recognize it because they're so removed from it. They don't have frequent enough interludes with nature to really appreciate how uplifting it is. Again, we could call that a big conspiracy of modern living, and a dark agenda to keep us all disconnected from our passion, right, from our truth, from what nurtures and sustains us. But anyway, we're not conspiracy theorists here. Anyway, so what does all this mean, right? This idea of a marriage between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Interestingly, I put a comment on one of the people who I interact with on Facebook. Put a post on about the fact that the midwives over here have put a proper High Court challenge in to our government about mandating vaccinations for all healthcare workers, which of course includes midwives. And midwives are basically saying, no way, get stuffed. F off. You don't get to mandate anything. We're midwives, and we are here to basically honour free choice. You know, the Midwives Association is very big on empowering women through the birthing process to feeling in charge of their experience of birthing, right? As opposed to what happened, you know, when doctors took over, especially through the 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s, sort of waning away through the 60s, but through that era where, you know, birth had become such a sterile, mechanical process, the joy, the spiritual experience had been taken away from women going through this incredible initiation, right? Becoming a mother is an incredible initiation and very powerful one. So, you know, the Midwives Association is very passionate about supporting free choice and medical choice and all of that. So the idea that they should be mandated into vaccination, whether or not you believe vaccinations are good or bad, is irrespective of this argument, right? They have challenged, and it's going through the courts right now, that the midwives are challenging the right of the government to mandate any medical procedure, and we're pretty sure they're going to win based on, you know, today's law. But anyway, I commented on a friend's post around that, and there was lots of, you know, heated debate going on, and I basically put a one-liner in and said, whenever the shadow masculine gets so out of line, the divine feminine will step up in its power. That's all I put, right? And I got comments saying, this isn't a gender question. I have a friend who's a male midwife, and I go, whoa. What people really don't understand these terms, masculine and feminine, are talking about primordial energies, foundational energies. They're not talking about gender. They're not talking about boys and girls. We're talking about these energies. The masculine energy in its divinity is confidence, and it's action, and it's joy in many ways, right? It's bright yellow. It's this strength, right? And the divine feminine is love, right? It's a beautiful pink color. It's flexibility, it's compassion, it's collaboration, right? It's not competitive, it's collaborative, it's supportive, right? The divine masculine is more inspirational. The divine feminine is more supportive. They work together. One is not more higher than the other, and they're not really indicative of men and women. Yes, of course, men usually display more masculine tendencies and women usually display more feminine qualities, but that, you know, that's not set in stone. You simply have no idea how evolved you are. Thank you, Anne. Maybe I have an idea, but I choose not to work from relational to Joe blogs. Yeah, but I choose not to work from that mindset of evolution. Hey, Sister Kelly. So, because it doesn't help me to believe that I'm evolved, right? It just doesn't help. It helps me to believe that I am, you know, quote unquote normal, right? I'm the normal I want to be. I'm the normal I want everyone to be. Not exactly like me, but passionate and connected and intuitive and, you know, inspirational. That's it. So yeah, I don't see myself as quote unquote evolved most of the time. So the point is, yeah, I don't, you know, I don't recognize where most people are at. That is true. And I don't recognize, and I forget, because I deal mainly in my own communities, I just forget where the general population is in terms of terminology and ideology that I am, you know, used to relating to quite freely. Like, I don't have to explain myself when I use masculine and feminine in this community, but maybe I should, right? Because maybe there's benefit here, because as Joe has pointed out, there's a lot of talk about this in spiritual community, you know, the masculine and the feminine are coming together to form union within this marriage, right? And so all that they're talking about is the idea that we're coming back into a form of balance. You know, I've talked a lot about balance and how this terminology as well can create a lot of misunderstanding in people. You know, they get their wrong idea about balance as somehow a center point, it's somehow the pendulum has stopped swinging, or it's 50-50 of this and that, right? This marriage between the divine masculine and the divine feminine within us, the bringing of strength and flexibility together, the bringing of confidence and compassion and understanding together. it's time, a lot of people also misunderstand this idea that we're moving from the head to the heart, part of this journey from 3D to 5D, which again, very easily misunderstood concepts. And some spiritual teachers make a big hoo-ha about it. Some are very, very dogmatic about what they mean and what is the truth. I tend not to be so dogmatic about what the truth is with all of these concepts, because I understand that everyone has their own truth around these concepts. But the general premise is that as we move from the head to the heart, as we move from this shadow masculine, not the divine masculine so much, but the shadow masculine, which has been predominant on this planet for many thousands of years now, into a more balanced state where the divine feminine is coming in to balance out the shadow masculine, so that we can have more divine masculine. Ironically, as we apply divine feminine to shadow masculinity, we get a more divine masculinity arising out of that, right? So the difference between divine masculine and shadow masculine, right? So masculinity is confidence. Divine masculinity is a deep, authentic confidence, whereas shadow masculinity is competitiveness, right? I am right, I'm the best, I can prove, I can outdo, I can outrun, I can out whatever, right? Widget you. Whereas divine masculinity is confident in itself, is confident in its ability to act, is confident in its ability to produce and do things in the world, but doesn't need to compete, right? Because there's no... The thing with the shadow masculine is it's not so... The confidence comes from a lack of confidence, right? Because we're in the confidence. Could you talk a bit on 4D? Yeah, I can talk a little bit about 4D. My concept of 4D, and again, that's thing. But I'll just continue on this route, and then I'll try and leave the last few minutes to talk, or at least open the conversation about 4D, because a lot of people talk about how we're sort of stuck in 4D right now, which is a lot of people are scared of 4D because it's kind of represents the astral world in many terminologies and many understandings, right? And that's scary. And there's a lot of shadow involved in 4D for many people's perception. And again, these are just terms that are used. These are not absolute places. 3D is not God doesn't have a concept of 3D or 5D or 4D. These are human concepts applied to try and make the death zone, try to make sense of a world that is beyond our capacity to understand. That's the truth. We don't understand. We can't understand with this limited mind, and yet there's a desire to, because we feel safer when we think we understand. So we make all of these concepts and these rules, and we use terminology such as masculine and feminine and shadow and light to try and bring understanding and communicate various concepts with each other. So the point is, trying to answer Joe's question, this marriage is really just a balancing out, a recalibration, where the shadow masculine is losing its power, its hold over us. As we're coming out of this dark period of time, more and more femininity is coming in, and it's being more honored here on the planet. There's always been feminine energy here. There's always been divine feminine and shadow feminine energies working on this planet, just as there's always been divine masculine and shadow masculinity. It's just been, what we've observed is that the shadow masculine has had an over representation here on the planet, and our society has been, embracing or built out of very shadow masculine tendencies, competitiveness, as an example, right? And structure, right? The masculine is more structured, the feminine is more free-flowing. That is normal. Structure doesn't need to be right or wrong, but the structure has been applied in such a funneling of power upward way, right? Structures don't need to be so siphoning or so dark in their agenda, but the shadow masculine, of course, uses structure in such a way that it is detrimental to those at the bottom of the structure, right? Interestingly, shadow femininity uses free-flowingness in an entropic way. I don't know how to say that, in a way that is detrimental as well, right? So the divine feminine uses this flow state to progress its desires, whereas shadow femininity uses what you might call flow or lack of structure in a detrimental way. There's there's positives and negatives to both masculinity and femininity. And so that's basically how we understand it. The shadow of either highlights the detrimental aspects of the fundamental qualities of either masculinity or femininity. And again, we're not talking about men and women. It is true that men tend towards the masculine traits and women tend towards the feminine traits, but each of us is a mix. We have to be. You cannot survive. No one can be 100% one or the other. Nothing is 100% of anything. 100% completion is a misnomer. So don't get too caught up in this marriage. And even the concept of marriage, right, is a very interesting concept that I believe is, under scrutiny right now. And there's a huge opportunity to let go of what is a shadow masculine contract, right? The marriage contract. We think it's all about love, but, the marriage contract itself, at least this has historically been for the last 5, 6, 7, 800 years. I'm not quite sure on the history of marriage previously, but at least we've seen that there's been a very contractual agreement where basically masculinity has a dominant ruling effect, but the feminine is also acknowledged and appreciated, but there's been this out of balance and this sort of contractual promise that relies on a supply and delivery agreement, pretty much, where the man supplies the means and the protection, the woman supplies the nurture and the love and the sex, etc. And it's a contract, it's an agreement, it's a match made up where people are getting their needs met. We're moving beyond that, and I believe marriage has some cleaning up, some repurposing, what is it when you change the definition? Redefinition needs to occur around what marriage basically is and what it means, and to let go of a lot of the old energy around marriage, and to let go of a lot of this old. So this idea of a marriage between the divine masculine and divine feminine doesn't sound very appealing to those of us who are more heart-centered, because it seems quite contractual and quite, domineering, and it just doesn't appeal. It doesn't appeal to me, that idea, and that's not the way I visualize what's going on right now. I see this as an evolution, and evolutions do not occur in straight lines, and they are not neat, and they're not contractual. Evolutions occur through trial and error. Evolution occurs through a process of growth, which is free-flowing and has structure to it, and we experiment with a lot of this. And so this evolution of a unification of our masculinity and our femininity, and the healing of our masculinity and our femininity, so that we can function from a more empowered space. And I don't even like the term balance, because, as I said, balance people start to think, have I got enough of this? Have I got enough of that? It has to be dynamic. There are times when we do require more masculine energy. There are times where we do require more feminine energy to achieve the outcomes or the situations that really are beneficial to us, right? As a soul expressing itself here on a planet, right? Using physicality to have experiences that benefit the soul in moving forward, in gaining more wisdom and more deeper understanding of the aspect of the divine that it truly is, right? So this concept of marriage, I don't believe, is a particularly good way of describing the process that is naturally occurring as we're coming out of, however many thousand years of darkness, right? We go through these natural cycles, and we've been through a very dark period of time on this planet for thousands and thousands of years, 6,000-8,000 years, depending on, when exactly does it become winter, and when exactly does spring give way into summer, right? We're in spring right now. We're coming out of the darkness. We've been coming out of it since the Renaissance. We've been 500 years of spring starting to show itself. But, we're ramping up right now. We're really getting some beautiful days as we come into the light again after, overwintering through the dark period. During this dark period, the shadow, the darkness, has really used masculinity has been their tool of choice. Authoritarian control has been the go-to through this period of darkness. Other periods of darkness on this planet, right, have been times where the feminine has been used by the darkness to, establish, places of anarchy where they still siphon the energy and use fear to their advantage. So it's not that the masculine is the shadow and the feminine is the light. That is not the truth at all, right? Both masculine and feminine have both light and dark, and both can be used in either direction. And right now, it just happens that to come out of a time of shadow masculinity, divine femininity is the antidote, right? Is the balancing power that brings us back to a more divine masculine, divine feminine opportunity to co-create in the light, right? And to express ourselves more expansively. So hopefully that answers that, Joe. In terms of 4D, again, I would really hold my tongue in my cheek whenever or take it with a grain of salt, another good expression, around dealing with people who are talking about the difference between 3D, 4D, 5D, 12D, all of this D BS, right? These different dimensions. Yeah, there are dimensions. Yeah, there are envelopes of energy. But do we need to get too carried away with understanding them? I believe not, right? The irony of the whole friggin' process is it's incredibly simple. We don't need to overcomplicate it with all of this information. All you need to do is relax, right? Relax out of stress, relax out of the stress state, and follow your heart into being willing to have experiences that help you evolve. To stay aware of how experiences are influencing you, and not to need to overly analyze your awareness, but just to allow yourself to be inspired and guided by what arises next. We all have an immense or amazing internal guidance system, and it's not hard, it's not tricky to access that. It really just requires you to relax. And one of the easiest ways to relax is to get out of a lot of the terminology that has been applied. Hey, Brother Lou, get out of a lot of the terminology, because it inspires stress when we don't understand. And the thing is, none of us can really understand 4D because it's not very well defined. Each person defines it in their own way. So there's all of this conflict and all of this contradiction out there between 3D, 4D, 5D, and different people saying different things, and our poor little heads trying to understand it all. We recognize that we can't understand it. And the problem is, when we realize we're not understanding something that we think or we've been trained to believe is important, is we get stressed. And once we get stressed, we disconnect ourselves from our deeper intuitive knowing, which ironically just guides us through the process very naturally if we allow it. And this is the shadow masculine agenda, is to get very intellectual on things. This is how they apply that pyramidical structure, is through this belief that you need to understand things, and you progress through understanding, and that things happen in logical, sequential, structured ways. It's not the truth. It doesn't have to be the truth anyway. Yes, things can progress through logical, structured ways, but only if we create that, only if we believe that, only if we, manifest that pathway. We can equally manifest a beautiful, flowing, nurturing, loving progression through unfolding evolutions, through unfolding knowings, deeper understandings that don't require a whole heap of intellectual gymnastics, don't require a whole heap of study and remember and debating who's right and who's wrong and whether this makes sense or that makes sense. Make sense is always very relative to who is trying to make sense of it, and the history they have to use, right? Great philosophers have, espoused all sorts of interesting concepts through understanding, but we have to understand that much of what we've inherited from the past, we've inherited from a time where the shadow masculine had had its structure well and truly in place. So a lot of the great spiritual leaders of the last few thousand years, a lot of the books that we read in history, you have to understand that those great beings were operating under the system that was in place at the time, which was a very strict, energetic lockdown around this structure. And the intellectual progression was the only real option they had, because the energy just was not flowing through to allow a more feminine approach. We have had some, beautiful feminine saints here on the planet over the last few thousand years, but they have always struggled to be understood. They've always struggled to be accepted, because by and large, the vast majority of the population could not access that level of heart. So many other spiritual teachers have used what was available to them, which was the intellect and the mind and logic, to try and help people come to a degree of connection with themselves. But it's a half-assed connection, right, that comes through the intellectual understanding. But that is what we've had. That's why we've been studying scriptures and reading the commandments and the Bible and the Upanishads and the Vedas and the Buddhist texts and all of the rest of it, to try and intellectually understand what God is. It's that time is coming to an end. Thankfully, we're getting much, much, much more opportunity to come to understand what everything is, what this creation is, through the experience of it, because it is we are much more capable of having that experience today. We're much more capable of relaxing out of the mentality and expanding into the feeling, the heart, the deeper connection, the intuitive experience of what it is we desire to align with. So hopefully that helps. It's probably a pretty shitty answer to your question, Anne, about 4D. But yeah, it does basically relate to this astral sort of world, where a lot of people can get caught up in talking to dead spirits, right? Dead spirits. The spirit isn't dead, but the spirits of dead people hang out in quote unquote 4D. A lot of our ancestors are there, and a lot of them have wisdom to share with us, but it's not always the highest form of wisdom. And there is a lot of ego still in 4D, and there is a lot of trickery that can occur there. So it's a place that I don't say you need to be scared of, but you need to keep your wits about you if you're dabbling in dancing in 4D, if you're dancing in the astral plane, right? It is a place where quite a few people have become a little unstuck and got caught up in various narratives that don't really serve them in the short term. They always serve in the long term, because it's an experience that's worth having, but it can be a bit messy in the short to medium term. A little bit messy, but we don't make messy wrong. Anyway, my friends, that is Chat with Matt for today. I welcome any other questions or topics or suggestions as we progress. Much, much love to you all. Choose to relax as best you can. I know the world looks incredibly unstable right now. It's very hard to feel. Yeah, exactly. It can be dangerous. It's not necessarily dangerous for everyone, Lewis. Like many people who are adept, well trained, or have experiences from their past that allow them to navigate 4D well, it's not dangerous for them. It's like, swimming in big surf is dangerous, but people who are trained to swim in big surf make it look easy. So 4D is dangerous for the vast majority of people, but not for everyone. So we don't need to put the label of dangerous on it as an absoluteness, but most of us are well advised to be cautious of dabbling in the 4D, right? Of getting too caught up in astral traveling or astral projection, all the rest. So many people have put it out that is the progression that you need to go on to spiritually progress, but it's not the truth. No path is necessary, and all paths are valid. So make your own rules. Don't get too caught up in having to do what some people might be telling you is necessary in terms of, various practices. If the practice doesn't feel appealing to you, or if it feels appealing for the wrong reasons, right, the egoic reasons, then I would suggest you swerve, you steer clear, and you follow a path that feels much more nurturing and aligned with the truth of who you be, rather than getting caught up in shadow masculinity, competitiveness, and games of the ego. Right, trying to become psychic for the sake of becoming psychic. There's no necessity to become psychic, right? There's no necessity to open your third eye and to be able to predict the future. That is not required for you to live a immensely purposeful and very happy and joyful life. It might be the path that your soul is directing you on, and by all means, if it is, go for it and enjoy your progression through the various layers of psychic awakening. But it is not necessary. This is the point. It is not the only way. It is not even the way the vast majority will evolve into a much more expansive experience of their true self. So don't get caught up in spirituality being all about the woo-woo, clairvoyance, clairaudience, etc., etc. It does not have to be. It does not have to be. I'm not clairvoyant or clairaudient to any degree, right? I do not spend any time working on increasing my insight through my third eye. I don't need to. I just relax and allow myself to be naturally guided into situations that work for me. I allow myself to naturally relax and speak freely of what feels like truth to me. And that's all. That's it. But not everyone's like me, right? So it's not that I'm saying my way is better than their way. Not at all. I'm just allowing you to expand out of the dogma that it should be a certain way and allow yourself to experience or be guided into what way best serves you. Grounding is important. So much love. Hey, Sister Georgie. This, it is time for me to come to an end. I have another session coming up shortly. And I do need to eat. So much love to you all. Allow yourself to relax. And even though the outside world is particularly chaotic right now, allow yourself to trust that it is evolving in a potentially good way. Not necessarily to rest on your laurels and do nothing. Be willing to advocate for what feels really important to you, but don't do it from a state of fear and fight. Do it from a state of love. Whatever love guides you to do, be willing to step past your resistance to doing it and get off your tough and do it. Follow your love, follow your passion, follow what feels important to you. Don't get caught up in right and wrong, but rather be an expression of what love is inspiring from within you. It is as simple as that. Much love to you all, my friends. Bye for now. Bye-bye.